All right, so these are the notes on the Geometry Basics vocabulary. So we're just going to go over some basic vocabulary that you're going to need to be able to know for the rest of the school year. All right, so our first term is point. And so a point, so it's what you think it is, a point. And in this picture, it's labeled as point X. And then to name it, we just literally say point X. Okay, and it's with a capital letter X. So to name a point, you use a capital letter. Our next term is a line. And a line is a straight edge that goes on forever in both directions. That's why there's two different arrowheads on each side. Uh, Even though this line says it contains 2 points that we shown, a line is actually made up of an infinite number of points. Okay, and so there are a couple of different ways to be able to name a line. The first way you name a line is by the lowercase kind of script letter. So we can call that line N, or we can say line XY. So take 2 points that are on the line and in capital form. Or we can do the symbol for a line, which is kind of looks like a straight line with two arrowheads on either side and the XY over the XY. And that's just another way for us to say the line XY. Our next term is a line segment. And so a line segment is actually a portion of a line. And so it has two endpoints, and it does not continue on and on in both directions. And so if we want to name a line segment, we do the XY and we put the line over it, but not with two arrowheads on the end. We just put nothing, just a line over it. And so that says line segment XY. Our next term is a ray. An array has an endpoint and then goes on forever in one direction. So as you can see at X, there's an endpoint, and then at the other end, there's an arrow that goes. So that's telling me it just keeps going on forever. And so if I want to name a ray, again, I do a line, but I put an arrow only on one end, and then I name it by 2 points that are on the ray, and that is points XY. So this is the symbol for ray XY. All right, a plane is like a, well, not like, it is a flat surface. And so a lot of times when you see it represented, it will be in the shape of a quadrilateral, parallelogram, or some sort. But it's really just a flat surface that extends all in every direction. So imagine if this side kept going on forever, the left going on forever, the right goes on and on forever. Okay. So imagine maybe your desktop, and if that extended in all directions, going every way, that would be a plane. Okay. And so name a plane two different ways. You name it by 3 points that are not on the same line. So there are 3 points that are on the plane but not on the same line. So we name this plane XYZ. Or we can name this plane P, which is going to be the uppercase script letter. So if they give that uppercase script letter like it is here in blue, then we can name that plane P. Your next term is an angle, and that's where two rays meet at an endpoint, and they have a common endpoint. And then we can name these rays two different ways. So one of the ways is called angle ABC. And so we have to give that an order with the middle point, the shared endpoint, which we're going to call a vertex, which we'll learn later. It has to be in the middle. And so I can call this angle ABC, or I can call it angle CBA. Okay. If it doesn't, if the vertex isn't shared with any other angle, then you can name it by one letter and also call that angle B. And then if so happen the pictures have numbers in it and they've numbered the angles, I can also call that angle 1. And so just speaking of a vertex, again, if you have an angle, the vertex is where the two rays meet. Okay, and so remember when you're naming an angle by 3 letters, the middle letter has to be the vertex of the angle. And the vertex is a point, so we'll just name it point B. Okay, our next term is collinear. So I want you to think like co-worker, somebody that you're with, somebody that you work with. Collinear means points that are on the same line. Okay, so it kind of looks like this. So A, B, and C would be collinear. They are points that are on the same line. So non-collinear would be points that are not all on the same line. So you can see A and B are on the same line, but C is not. So all 3 of these points are considered non-collinear. And so the definition of that is just points not on the same line. Now coplanar, kind of similar to collinear. Coplanar kind of looks like that. And what it all means is just points that are on the same plane. So X, Y, and Z are coplanar because they're all on the same plane. And then non-coplanar would mean the opposite of coplanar, which you don't have, all the points are not on the same plane. So in this case, X is not on the plane, so we can say that X, Y, and Z are non-coplanar. Parallel lines. Now I'm pretty sure you've heard of parallel lines before and you've seen that. So they look like this. Okay. And these are 2 lines that never intersect. They stay the same distance apart and they never touch each other. Okay. So the symbol for parallel kind of looks like 2 vertical parallel lines. Okay. So for example, if we wanted to go off of the picture above, which those lines are labeled A and B, then we can say line A is parallel to line B, and that's how you read that. So the symbol for parallel looks like 2 vertical parallel lines. Intersecting lines, they look similar to this, and all it means is just 2 lines that cross each other anywhere. If 2 lines cross over each other, then they are called intersecting lines. And then perpendicular, this is a big one. We will be using perpendicular a lot, and you have to understand the meaning of perpendicular. Okay, so here would be a picture of perpendicular. And remember that this box, when you see it in an angle, that means that it's 90 degrees. It's a right angle. And perpendicular just means that 2 lines that intersect at a 90-degree angle. So they're a little different than the intersecting lines. Intersecting lines can intersect at any angle, but to be perpendicular, you have to intersect at 90-degree angle. And the symbol for perpendicular looks like an upside down T. So then if I had to go off of the lines that we have pictured above, we would say line A is perpendicular to line B. And And then our next term is an angle bisector. And so here's an example of a picture of an angle bisector. The red line is the angle bisector. And all an angle bisector does is a line array that divides an angle into two equal parts. So basically this red line is cutting this black angle in half. And these blue markings here are just showing you that this angle measurement and this angle measurement down here are the same. And so when you have an angle bisector, that means it cuts the angle into two equal parts, and these two equal parts are the same. They have the same angle measure. And then a segment bisector along the same lines, it's going to cut a segment in half. It's going to cut them and make two equal parts. So basically, by definition, it's a segment, line, or plane that intersects a segment in the middle, cutting it into two equal parts. Because remember, a segment doesn't go on and on. It has they have endpoints. And so wherever, if a line or a segment or a plane cut that segment in half, that is called a segment bisector. And then these other red markings here are labeling that, are telling me that segment A to M is equal to the segment from M to B. And this M is the middle, which will come in a couple units, a couple lessons, and we'll know that that's called the midpoint. And that is your notes. So make sure you have everything copied, the pictures, the definitions, and make sure you review them and are ready for class.